My cousin and I transmigrated into an orc world. In my previous life, I married the Wolf Lord, while my cousin married the amorous fox. The Wolf Lord was faithful, but he imprisoned me at home, forcing me to keep giving birth to his offspring. Eventually, I died during childbirth. The amorous fox was naturally flirtatious, constantly philandering, and in the end, my cousin was bullied to death by his numerous mistresses. Now, given a second chance at life, we both, without prior discussion, took each other's marriage contracts. Facing the 2 marriage contracts that Grandma sacrificed her life to obtain, my cousin and I both let out a sigh. Then, we looked at each other. You two, reincarnated, in our previous life. When my cousin and I received the marriage contracts, we were completely at a loss. All we could remember were Grandma's last words of warning. Ordinary people's lives in the orc world were as worthless as grass. If we didn't get married as soon as we came of age, we would become playthings for the orcs. Grandma had worried and planned meticulously, and finally, on her deathbed, she managed to obtain 2 decent marriage contracts. One was with the Wolf Lord, and the other was with the amorous fox. The Wolf Lord held a high position of power and was unswervingly loyal to his partner. The amorous fox was extremely wealthy, romantic, considerate, and good at taking care of others. Both seemed like the best choices for a partner. Humph. I disdainfully rolled my eyes. That Wolf Lord is a feudal old stick. He kept telling me that women shouldn't show their faces in public and only allowed me to stay at home and keep having children for him. My cousin gently stroked my head in comfort, but she also wore a worried expression. The amorous fox is indeed considerate and caring, but he can't say no to anyone. He treats all the females around him the same way. My cousin was gentle-natured and had always longed for a monogamous relationship. As for me, I just wanted freedom from restraint. I took my cousin's hand and looked at the marriage contract in her hand. How about we swap? My cousin's eyes lit up, and she nodded firmly. Swap? After all, our previous lives had been a complete mess. In this life, we didn't mind a bit of chaos. On the wedding day, Aaron, the amorous fox, directly burst into the dressing room and started flirting with my makeup artist. He was dressed in a dark green suit, with a tall and slender figure, broad shoulders, and a narrow waist. I had to admit that his face was outrageously handsome, to the point that the makeup artist blushed shyly right in front of me. I chose to turn a blind eye to it. My cousin had told me that in her previous life, she had tried to persuade Aaron gently, trying to remind him that he was a married man and what he was doing was immoral. As a result, Aaron had kissed someone else passionately in public during the wedding, making an intimate scene. Later, he even brought different women home and had sex with them right in front of her. This is just how we amorous foxes are. Since you married me, you have to get used to it, he had said, but I promise you, you'll be my only wife. Though I'll have many girlfriends, this life. Aaron said the same thing to me. I smiled slightly and no longer tried to hide what was playing on my phone. I watched it openly in front of Aaron. On the screen were various male orcs. Most of the orcs were handsome, unashamedly showing off their animal ears and tails, posing seductively for the camera. What are you looking at? Aaron panicked and snatched my phone from me. You're my wife. How can you? I tilted my head and looked at him with a smile. This is just my nature, as my husband. You should get used to it too. Aaron was left speechless and slammed the door as he left. During the wedding ceremony, Aaron wore a scowl the entire time, as if someone owed him billions of dollars. I looked at the special video camera in the distance, and my eyes welled up with tears. That video camera had been arranged by Frances, the Wolf Lord, at my cousin's request, in her previous life. She had suffered so much humiliation during her wedding with Aaron that she was worried I would go through the same thing in this life, so she had someone film the wedding. If I ever wanted to file for divorce in the future, this would be the best evidence. My kind-hearted cousin, who might not even be able to handle her own situation, still thought of me in everything. I didn't want to worry her. I forced a smile and took Aaron's arm, secretly pinching his waist. Why aren't you smiling? Is it because you don't like to smile by nature? He hadn't been like this when he was flirting with my makeup artist earlier. Aaron shuddered slightly and gave me a glare. A faint blush crept onto his fair cheeks. Wait a minute, I just pinched him once. Why is he blushing so much? Thankfully, he didn't cause any trouble during the ceremony like he did in the previous life. As soon as we got home that night, Aaron pinned me against the wall. You pinched me, he said. his voice sounding a bit aggrieved. My waist and abdomen are the softest and most vulnerable parts. No one else is allowed to touch them, only you, he mumbled and pounced on me. I instinctively kicked him. You kicked me, he said, suddenly looking excited. His ears and tail popped out. Can you kick me again? So this is what he's into. Before I could react, Aaron hugged me tightly, regardless of my struggles. He asked in a hoarse voice, "What's wrong? Is it your period?" Blushing, I pushed his head away as he nuzzled against me. "You're dirty." Aaron stopped, and his ears drooped visibly. "I'm not dirty," he shouted. "For us amorous foxes, our first time is reserved for our partners, so you're proud of that." The next day, I could barely get out of bed, my waist aching from the madness of the previous night. I couldn't remember if he had taken precautions every time, just to be safe. I still got out of bed with trembling legs and took a pill. In my previous life, after I married Francis, he took relatively good care of me at first. However, when he found out that I was secretly taking birth control pills, he angrily took me to the hospital and made me get my stomach pumped and induced vomiting. "It's your duty as a wife to reproduce," he admonished me condescendingly. From then on, he had to personally inspect everything I had. However, in this life, Aaron was nowhere to be found. In my sleep, I heard him answer a phone call. It was a sweet sounding female voice on the other end. He must have gone off to have some fun. My cousin messaged me, asking how I was doing. I looked around the empty three-story villa and let out a long sigh. Great, this feeling of being able to do our own thing without being restricted was simply wonderful. I was a bit worried about my cousin, though. She was gentle-natured and used to being tolerant, which was why Aaron's mistresses had been able to bully her in the previous life. But in this life, my cousin said she was doing well and was happy. I felt a bit more at ease. Aaron came back with big and small bags of breakfast, and a pretty girl was following him. "Wow, he's already brought his mistress home." I stood up and walked over. Aaron blocked the girl. "Susan, this is my sister. She'll be your sister too from now on." "Thanks," I said, snatching a basket of steamed buns from Aaron's hand and flashing a standard 8-tooth smile. "I was really tired last night. Excuse me for not being a good host. Make yourselves at home." With that, I turned and went into the bedroom, so I didn't hear their conversation outside. "Brother, I told you sister-in-law would misunderstand, but you didn't believe me." "Humph, I wanted her to misunderstand. I wanted to make her angry." "Who told her to look at other males on our wedding day?" "Well, you were the one flirting with other females first." "So what? We amorous foxes are naturally flirtatious." Slap. Ella slapped Aaron. "Being flirtatious is about finding a compatible partner. You'd better think about it carefully." I sat at the bar in the bedroom, finished the basket of steamed buns, and then happily went back to bed. Then I carefully studied the photos of male models on my phone. Aaron suddenly came in and sat by the bed without saying a word. Looking at his unhappy expression, I suddenly understood. He probably thought I was in the way. I got up tactfully, but he grabbed my wrist. "What are you doing?" "Making room for you and your sister." I pulled my hand back and smiled. "The bed is big and comfortable, right?" "She's already left." I was surprised. "She left so soon? Why didn't she stay a bit longer?" Just then, my phone rang. "Hello, yes. What about that No. 18 guy? How's his ability?" "Okay, please give me his contact information." Before I could finish, my phone was snatched away and hung up. "Susan," Aaron pointed at the male model on the screen. His eyes red. "Is his face more handsome than mine? Is his body better than mine? How can you? To be fair, no, they weren't, but," I took my phone back. "So what? Can you do the things he can do?" Aaron looked at me in disbelief. "Didn't I satisfy you last night? What other tricks do you want?" Half an hour later, I pointed at the 2 big boxes Aaron had brought back. "Put on the clothes inside." Aaron gave me a look of shame and indignation. "I didn't expect you to be so. Is this all?" He picked up the matched casual clothes, looking a bit confused. "What's wrong? Didn't you just say you could do what he can? You hired a male model just for real modeling." I laughed. "What else did you think?" I pulled Aaron and took a lot of photos in his villa. A luxury house was great. We didn't even need to set up a scene. We just used the actual scenery. So, on the second day of our marriage, Aaron and I took over 1,000 photos of finished clothing. This was a dream I had always had in my previous life but could never achieve. Before transmigrating into the orc world, I was a fashion designer. My dream was to create my own brand. Even after coming to the orc world, I didn't give up on this dream. Francis, however, thought it was ridiculous. Don't I give you enough money? Why are you wasting your time on such worthless things? He confiscated my internet, connected devices, burned my design sketches, and trapped me in the house, forcing me to focus on being a good wife and mother. Wow, you made me look so handsome. Aaron's eyes sparkled, and his fox tail, which he had revealed for the photos, wagged non-stop. It was clear that he was very happy. I stroked the ears on his head and praised him. You're already good looking. Aaron blushed, pushed me onto the sofa, and buried his head in my chest, sniffing around. I felt ticklish and we fooled around for a while. When we finally stopped, the sample garment Aaron was wearing was in a terrible state. Ah, my sample garment. I looked at the dark blue casual suit, which had the highest cost, on Aaron with heartache and gave him a glare. Aaron looked sheepish and didn't dare to meet my eyes. What are you going to do with so many clothes? Just for taking photos. I hesitated for a moment and then told Aaron my whole plan. There was no point in hiding it. I was gambling that Aaron wouldn't interfere with what I wanted to do. Unlike Francis, most of his energy was spent on his mistresses, so he wouldn't have time to care about me. You plan to create a fashion brand. Aaron suddenly became serious and then fell into thought, resting his chin in his hand. I felt a bit nervous, but I was also determined. No matter what obstacles I faced in this life, I would pursue my dream. Just as I was about to express my determination, Aaron spoke. Have you decided on the cooperative factory? Have you inspected the store location? Are you planning to do online sales or offline? Have you sorted out the promotion and marketing? Facing Aaron's questions, my mind went blank for a moment. Aren't you against me showing my face outside? Aaron looked puzzled. Why would I be? It's great that you have something you like to do. Besides, what you like to do happens to match what I like to do. This is what they call two good things coming together. Aaron wagged his tail and was about to pounce on me again, but I pushed him away. Get to the point. You like opening stores too? I asked. My cousin had never mentioned this in my previous life. To be more precise, I like starting from scratch. Aaron took out a stack of share contracts and placed them in front of me. I like seeing something grow from nothing under my management. That feeling is awesome. I looked at the familiar brand names on the contracts. Are all these yours? Aaron held his head high, looking proud. Some I developed myself, and some I franchised. These businesses just grew bigger than I expected. You know, it gets really boring once an industry matures. This Fox is so pretentious. In my impression, Aaron was just a playboy relying on his family's fortune. Aaron slyly moved closer again. I can help you with your fashion brand, but I have one condition. What condition? I want to be the only male model for all your clothes in the future. I raised an eyebrow and looked at him. With his perfect figure, top-notch looks, and free labor, this was a dream come true, so I agreed immediately. Deal. Aaron let out an excited howl and pounced on me again. Wait, what about all those mistresses he was supposed to have? Why am I the only one who has to put up with this? Only by marking you with my scent can I keep other male orcs from bullying you, Aaron explained as he rubbed against me. Despite all the chaos, Aaron's efficiency was astonishing. With his help, my first original fashion brand store opened in the city's central business district. On the opening day, it was packed with customers. Just as my career was booming, news came from my cousin. She was pregnant. I remembered the torture I endured after being imprisoned by Francis in my previous life. I immediately called my cousin back. No one answered the phone. The unease in my heart grew stronger. The next day, I rushed directly to Francis' mansion. After the butler opened the door for me, I saw my cousin sitting on the sofa. She was wearing a milky white home dress and sitting in the sunlight. She exuded the tenderness of motherhood. Sister, I ran over and took my cousin's hand. Susan. There was joy in my cousin's eyes. Sister, did Francis do anything to you? I nervously pulled my cousin and checked her up and down. My cousin smiled and pushed me back onto the sofa. Don't worry, Susan, Francis has been treating me very well. I just casually said I wanted to eat grapes, and he went out to buy them. I was stunned when I heard this. In my previous life, he always had that haughty superior attitude and would never be so attentive to others, but I still wasn't reassured. Sister, you must take good care of yourself, always put yourself first. Okay, got it. My cousin smiled and touched her belly. Now that I have this child, I not only have to take care of myself but also do my best to protect it. I looked at my cousin who was immersed in happiness. I didn't know what else to say. I knew that not everyone in this world hated childbirth as much as I did. My cousin had a personality opposite to mine. She was gentle and quiet and liked children. So she would definitely be a good mother. In my previous life, after Francis imprisoned me and forced me to get pregnant, I fell into depression and mania. I couldn't accept the new life and hated the pain of childbirth. I spent my days crying when I was depressed, when I was manic and couldn't torture the thing in my belly. I tortured myself crazily. It was a blessing that the child was still alive in such a situation. At 7 months, the child was born prematurely, and I had a difficult labor. Francis chose the child between the mother and the child, but in this life, my cousin loved this child so much, and Francis doted on her. I believed that the tragedy of my previous life wouldn't repeat itself. My cousin asked me how Aaron and I were getting along. Actually, it was strange, probably because Aaron and I had been busy with the clothing brand. I hadn't seen him going after other mistresses. My cousin smiled meaningfully when she heard this and said I was a fool. I didn't refute. Instead, I leaned on my cousin's lap and repeatedly told her to take good care of her body. At dusk, it was time for me to leave. Aaron should have been home, and I had to leave the mansion before Francis came back. As soon as I went out, I saw Francis holding a large box of grapes. Francis was a man with many rules. Since I was my cousin's relative, he insisted that I stay for a simple meal on my first visit. I hated him, but I couldn't refuse my cousin's invitation. In the end, I stayed. At the dinner, Francis suddenly said, "I'm sorry." I looked at Francis and then at my cousin. I was sure he was talking to me. My cousin explained. Francis told me that he had a dream. The things in the dream were the entanglements of our previous lives. He told my cousin about the dream, and my cousin took the opportunity to tell him about our reincarnation and the swapping of marriages. I'm Francis' wife, and we're partners for life. I don't want to hide it from him, my cousin explained. I looked at Francis. "So you know everything." He held a wine glass, his expression calm, and his eyes full of love for my cousin. Forget it, after all, it was a matter of the previous life. I guessed that this dinner was probably a feast for him to apologize. He was always arrogant, and I didn't expect him to grovel and apologize. As long as he treated my cousin well in this life, I raised my glass in return and let it go. The dinner was quite enjoyable for both the host and the guests, but as soon as I got home, I met a pair of resentful eyes. I looked at the cold food on the table and the unopened birthday cake. I suddenly remembered, today was probably Aaron's birthday. "You finally came back." Aaron had his hands in his pockets, and his face showed his displeasure. "You said you were busy today." I thought you were going to prepare a birthday surprise for me." As he spoke, his eyes actually turned red. Look at the time now. I knew I was in the wrong, so I took the initiative to touch his ears. "Sorry." I told him about my sister's pregnancy and how important my cousin was to me. When I was a child, my parents were very strict with me. To them, I was just a tool for them to show off. That's why my name was Susan. My parents told me that no matter what I did, I had to win. Only my cousin was good to me. She's gentle and considerate. She took me away when I was beaten. She used her saved pocket money to buy me delicious food. She was my only safe haven. That's why my cousin's name was Winnie. She was a girl surrounded by love since childhood, so she knew better how to love others. After transmigrating into the orc world, my cousin and I depended on each other. So in this life, I hoped that my cousin would have a good life. Aaron was stunned by what I said, and he hugged me in return. "From now on, I'll be your safe haven too." To be honest, I was a bit touched. I didn't prepare a gift, so I casually folded a rose from the packaging box and gave it to Aaron. It was quite perfunctory. Unexpectedly, he held the paper rose carefully, then he picked me up in his arms. "Since you forgot my birthday, you can compensate me in other ways." The amorous Fox clan was true to their name. Since marrying Aaron, I hadn't had a moment's peace every day, but tonight was especially intense. In the heat of passion, Aaron suddenly said, "Susan, let's have a baby." I was shocked and instinctively kicked him out of bed. Aaron lay on the ground, looking dazed. "Susan, what's wrong with you?" "Sorry, I curled up on the bed and didn't dare to look at him. The torture after getting pregnant and the pain of childbirth in my previous life were still vivid in my mind, whether it was selfish or heartless. I once swore, in this life, no one could force me to do something I didn't want to do. Aaron came up and turned my body around. Don't you want to have a baby with me? I tried to explain to him, it's not that I don't want to have a baby with you, I just don't want to have a baby. Why? Aaron probably couldn't understand, and he was so sad that his voice was choked with sobs. Don't you love me? I couldn't answer. I thought about the bits and pieces of my marriage with Aaron. I admitted that I had fallen for him, but I still couldn't accept the idea of having a baby. The light in Aaron's eyes dimmed little by little. I don't remember when he left. My self-created clothing brand has become quite famous. The small store in the city center has been making considerable profits every day, and several chain stores have been opened. I've been rushing between the stores every day. As busy as a spinning top, but I haven't seen Aaron since then. It's actually quite good. I can do what I like without being controlled by others. This was the life I had dreamed of before transmigrating and in my previous life, but I always felt that something was missing. At the fashion show half a year later, I saw the person who hadn't shown up for a long time, holding a champagne glass. I unconsciously quickened my pace and walked over. When I got closer, I found that there were two very beautiful female orcs standing beside him. He hugged them both in his arms and swaggered past me. Honey, isn't that your human partner? One of the female orcs snuggled in Aaron's arms. When you got married, you protected her and didn't let us bother her. But now you're ignoring her. Aaron glanced at me and smiled with a curl of his lips. I'm tired of her. The female orc covered her mouth and laughed nonstop. The other female orc covered her belly. Looking charming, honey, I'm so tired after walking for so long. The baby has been kicking me. Okay, let's go over there and rest. Aaron carefully supported the female orc's waist and turned to leave. I held the champagne glass and couldn't control my gaze as I stared at the three of them leaving. I felt as if I had fallen into an ice cave. I already knew Aaron's nature. I didn't want to have a baby. And his mistresses were probably happy to have offspring with him. It's nothing. But my heart still felt inexplicably sour. I raised my head and drained the wine in the glass. The intense bitterness stung my taste buds, and I coughed violently. I coughed until tears came out. Suddenly, someone gently patted my back. Are you okay? I looked up and saw a young cheetah orc. His strong body was over 2 meters tall, and the shadow he cast trapped me in the corner. Miss, are you alone? He leaned over and sniffed at my neck. You smell clean. Is your partner dead? Or do you not have a partner at all? I hadn't seen Aaron for half a year. The scent he left on me had long since dissipated. That meant I was now a plaything that could be humiliated at will. I didn't notice it when I was lost in thought. Only now did I realize that it wasn't just this cheetah orc. Many male orcs around were staring at me. The desire in their eyes was undisguised. Facing the gap in physique and the disparity in strength, I felt the approach of danger for the first time. The cheetah orc grabbed my wrist and rushed towards me regardless. I struggled but to no avail. In return, he bound me even more harshly. Suddenly, the restraint on my body loosened. The cheetah orc had been thrown to the ground. How dare you touch my woman? Aaron stood in front of me, his eyes bloodshot. I had never seen him so angry before. He pinned the cheetah orc to the ground and punched him in the face one after another, probably because of his status. The cheetah orc just bared his teeth in intimidation and didn't dare to fight back. Seeing that the cheetah orc was on the verge of death, I was afraid that someone would die, so I stepped forward and pulled Aaron back. Aaron stared at me for 2 seconds, and his eyes gradually cleared. The next moment, he picked me up and strode out of the exhibition hall. Aaron, let me down. I pounded on his back, but he didn't seem to notice. He carried me all the way to the parking lot and threw me into the back seat of the car. It was my fault. He pounced on me and gently kissed the place that the cheetah orc had touched. I didn't go home, and you didn't look for me. You really don't love me. Aaron lay on top of me, his ears drooping, and his voice full of grievance. I felt my heart soften, but when I thought of the 2 female orcs who had been with him today, and one of them was even pregnant with his child, I suddenly thought of my cousin's situation in her previous life and pushed him away violently. I don't care about the nature of your amorous fox clan. I don't care how many female orcs you find outside. With each word I said, Aaron's eyes dimmed a little more. But if you dare to let them come in front of me, I'll beat them up one by one. As soon as I finished speaking, Aaron suddenly pounced on me and tore at my clothes with his teeth. I was shocked and slapped him. Go to your mistress when you're in heat, don't go crazy with me. Aaron covered his face, his eyes full of disbelief. A red slap mark quickly appeared on his fair cheek. You're my partner, my wife. How can I not? How can I not? Just then, my phone rang insistently. It was a call from Francis Butler. He said that my cousin had a premature birth and was being taken to the hospital. When Aaron and I arrived, my cousin had already been wheeled into the delivery room. Even through the thick soundproof glass, I could clearly hear my cousin's moans. I grabbed Francis by the collar and questioned him. Don't you love my sister? Didn't you say you could take good care of her? Then why did she have a premature birth? My cousin had always told me she was fine and asked me not to worry. I was so stupid to believe her. Did Francis force her not to tell anyone, or did he bully my cousin behind my back? With each possible scenario that crossed my mind, my grip on his collar tightened. Francis lowered his eyes and showed no expression. It was the butler who stopped me. Miss Susan, please calm down. The young master and the young lady have done their best. The butler let out a sigh. The young lady is weak, and it's already a miracle that the child was carried to 7 months. Hearing my cousin's cries of pain one after another, I forced myself to calm down. I'm my cousin's closest relative, and I have to stay calm. What if Francis couldn't be trusted? What if, I remembered that in my previous life, he had stood there too. He had casually chosen to give up my life. I don't know how long it took. My cousin's voice in the delivery room grew weaker and weaker. My heart became more and more flustered. I glared at Francis and warned him in a low voice. If anything happens to my sister, even if I have to risk my life, I won't let you off. Francis still didn't react. He stood there expressionless the whole time and didn't say a word. It was as if what was happening around him had nothing to do with him. The doctor came out and told us the news I was most afraid of hearing. My cousin was having a difficult labor. I almost rushed up to the doctor in an instant, but Francis was one step faster than me. The mother, make sure the mother is safe. After saying that, he turned and left. When I saw him again, he was already in my cousin's delivery room. He held my cousin's hand and knelt down in front of her. After a long time, the cry of a baby came from the delivery room. The doctor came out and told us that both the mother and the child were safe. I let out a sigh of relief. Covering my face, I realized that I had been crying without knowing it. Francis busied himself with the formalities. He didn't allow anyone to interfere and did everything himself. So I stayed by my cousin's side in the ward while she was asleep. The heart that had been hanging in the air finally settled down. When my reason returned, I belatedly realized that someone was missing. Where was Aaron? I only remembered that Aaron had run outside the delivery room with me, and then, because I had been staring at Francis's movements, I didn't pay attention to what he was doing at all. After Francis finished his work and came back to stay by my cousin's side, I took the opportunity to go out to look for him. As a result, outside the delivery room, I found a fluffy thing curled up in the corner. The fur was brownish red and shiny. My intuition told me that this thing was Aaron, so I walked over and poked it. Sure enough, the ball of fur trembled, and then it transformed back into Aaron's appearance. I heard that orcs would turn back to their original form when they were extremely frightened or unconscious. He sat on the ground looking a bit embarrassed and reached out his hand to me. Can you give me a hand? It took me a lot of effort to pull him up from the ground. He buried his head in my neck and said in a muffled voice, "It's so scary, it's too scary, scary." I suddenly realized, was he scared by the sight of my cousin giving birth just now? Then I heard him continue, "If it had been you in there, I can't even bear to think about it." I was stunned and reached out to pat his back, but he suddenly hugged me. He hugged me even tighter than before. It was so tight that I could barely breathe. Sorry. Sorry. I didn't understand why he was apologizing. Aaron was gloomy the whole day. He stayed by my side all the time but didn't say a word, until he saw my cousin in the ward. Come to think of it, this was the first time he had met my cousin in this life. Looking at his surprised expression, I guessed that he probably remembered something. My cousin had just woken up, and Francis was so heartbroken that he was being very attentive, bringing tea and water. The two of them were full of affection. I quickly made an excuse and pulled Aaron away. I was afraid that this amorous fox would blurt out, "Have we met somewhere before?" It would be so embarrassing. Sure enough, that night, he mysteriously told me that he felt a strange sense of familiarity with my cousin. I simply stopped hiding it. I told him everything that had happened in my previous life. At first, he was surprised. And then he looked more and more guilty as he listened. Finally, he hugged me from behind. He held up his little finger in front of me. My behavior in my previous life was so bastard. If you're willing to forgive me, let's pinky swear in the way you humans make a contract. How childish. I smiled and flicked his finger. He was sorry to my cousin for what happened in the previous life. He owed her an apology. As for the conflict between us, I didn't care about the women around him before, but now I do, however. I still decided to talk to him about the matter of having children, and about those mistresses of his, but Aaron disappeared again. A month later, I received a call from my cousin. My cousin's voice was a bit nervous. She said that Francis had been meeting a mysterious person recently. Yesterday, she found out that the mysterious person was Aaron. They had talked all night, and early this morning, they went to the hospital. Francis was usually very reliable in his actions, but with Aaron being such a capricious fox, it was hard to say what they would do. I drove my cousin all the way to the hospital. No one answered Aaron's phone, and Francis's phone was turned off. At this time, I saw the female orc who was pregnant with Aaron's child swaying over. The way she moved was so graceful that she didn't look like a pregnant woman at all. She covered her mouth and smiled, revealing the truth. I was just acting for you that day. I was asked to play a pregnant woman even though I'm a sexy Medusa. At first, I refused, but Boss AI offered me a lot of money. After saying that, she beckoned to us and led me and my cousin to a ward. On the 2 hospital beds, 2 fluffy things, one red and one black, were lying on the bed with their eyes rolled back. What's wrong with them? The doctor came in and said with a smile. The vasectomy for the 2 of them was a success. Once the anesthesia wears off, they can be discharged from the hospital tomorrow. My cousin and I looked at each other, and we saw confusion on each other's faces. The next moment, we were both shocked. In my previous life, Francis attached great importance to the reproduction of offspring. The wolf clan always compared themselves to the dragons. He said that dragons had 9 children, so each generation of the wolf clan had to have 9 children too. In this life, he actually chose to get a vasectomy to prevent my cousin from suffering the pain of childbirth. But what surprised me even more was that Aaron had also gone to such lengths. In my perception, reproducing offspring was an orc's instinct, but Aaron didn't leave any offspring, so he gave up the whole forest for me, a withered grass. My cousin and I looked at each other. We each stayed by the fluffy things on the hospital bed, with mixed feelings in our hearts. When Aaron fully regained consciousness, he transformed back into his original form. Then he secretly glanced at me. The next moment, he swayed as if he was about to fall. What could I do? Of course, I chose to support him. I didn't notice before, but he actually has the potential to be a scheming fox. Aaron seemed oblivious. He blinked his amorous eyes and continued to explain pitifully. When the amorous fox clan gets married, if they feel that their partner is not their soulmate, they will be driven crazy by despair, tortured by desire, and then do those things. I wasn't a good fox in my previous life, but once we amorous foxes recognize our partner, our loyalty is no less than that of the wolf clan. Aaron hung his ears, and his tail drooped listlessly. He looked like he was about to fall apart. He carefully held out a set of keys to me. You can be angry with me, but your next fashion design theme is a beach party, and it took me half a year to find a seaside villa and buy it. Fine. I took the keys and patted his head. Now that the venue is ready, my model, when shall we go there? Aaron's eyes lit up, and his tail wagged like a propeller. My cousin covered her mouth and giggled. She said that both Aaron and I seem casual but are actually sincere. In a way, we are indeed soulmates. So I made up with Aaron. Well, everyone let go of the prejudices we had against each other in the previous life. In this life, we finally met the right person. After hearing the story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.